In a House Financial Services hearing on Capitol Hill that was yesterday, members of Congress interrogated crypto industry leaders about digital currencies and what future oversight and regulation might or should look like. During the hearing, though, one representative from California unknowingly created a new meme coin.
The number one threat to cryptocurrency is crypto. Bitcoin could be displaced by Ether, which could be displaced by Dodge, which could be displaced by Hamster Coin. And then there's Cobra Coin. And what could Mongoose Coin do to crypto coin?
Okay, Representative Brad Sherman of California was only joking about a Mongoose Coin, but the crypto bulls ran and made one. Multiple ones, actually. The newborn token, Mong, has surged more than 4 million% according to Coin Alpha, but there are several other versions on Binance and a few other platforms. But let's get to one of crypto's CEOs who was part of that Capitol Hill hearing, Bitfury CEO Brian Brooks. Okay, Brian, aside from the fact that he mispronounced Doge, it's not Dodge, it's Doge, doesn't what happened after Congressman Sherman used a made-up coin support his case? I mean, somebody went and created a Mongoose coin about which investors know very little, and now they're piling in, and it could be a complete fake.
Well, Mongoose coin might be a complete fake, Liz, but my guess is that the crypto community was not being head faked by Congressman Sherman. My guess was they were trying to make a point to him, which is, listen, we're actually building real value. And if you think that you can scare people away from this with that kind of talk, you're probably wrong about that. So I think this may have been an on-purpose thing, not a head fake.
But how is a Mongoose coin real money and a real value?
Well, look, there are meme stocks and there are meme tokens out there, and oftentimes things that start out that way turn into something more. So you take Dogecoin as an example, which is in its early days was kind of like the pet rock of crypto, if you remember such things from our childhood, right? But in fact, now there are developers building apps on top of the Dogecoin network. So who knows what's going to happen with Mongoose? But I think the point is making fun of an asset class that has a $3 trillion market cap, that has millions of users and fundamental development happening on it the same way the internet did 25 years ago. That's probably short-sighted.
Well, at Bitfury, you guys have created pretty much a large-scale digital asset platform and infrastructure for products and services, along with microchips that help in the mining process. Tell me what struck you most about yesterday's hearing, what encouraged you and what discouraged you.
Well, I've been testifying before this committee for a while now, and what surprised me was, by and large, there was sort of a bipartisan consensus that crypto's here to stay and that the network effects of financial services and other creator economy type of things is a real benefit to society. There were some outliers on both sides of the aisle, but there did seem to be a bipartisan consensus that this is here and it's probably a good thing. I was expecting more partisanship, to be honest, and instead we had 5 hours of fairly deep questioning on both sides, so that was the positive takeaway.
Well, the committee chair, Maxine Waters, did say that she wanted members of Congress and members of the Financial Services Committee to become more educated about it. But the point is, what will regulation look like? There is already existing regulation, but there isn't sort of one overarching regulatory body that can look at crypto very intently because it is complicated and it's shifting under our feet and changing as we speak. Would you be opposed to some type of individual beyond the SEC who's specifically knowledgeable about it, watching it, understanding it, and regulating it?
Yeah, well, Liz, this is going to be a funny comment coming from me, but the answer is I really would be opposed to that, partly because I fear all-powerful government central planners, and we don't have that anywhere else in our financial system. So, for example, there is not one banking regulator in the United States. There are 3 banking regulators, and that's for a whole bunch of historical reasons. What worries me about that for crypto is there is no one thing called crypto. It's very hard to think about gaming tokens and NFTs and tokenized financial assets and Bitcoin as all being representative of the same thing. So the way I think about it is, if you're a crypto project engaged in lending, you should probably be regulated like a bank that makes loans is regulated. But if you're a crypto project that's engaged in something totally different, let's say derivatives or art sales or some other collateralized product, there's a different regime. So having a giant, overarching, all-powerful, all-seeing regulator, that's not the American way typically.
That does surprise me that you say you'd be against it, because you were the acting controller of the currency, which basically ensures the stability of the banking and currency world. We know that Bitcoin is pretty much acting like a currency, but what about the others? You know, there's this argument about XRP and some of the names out there where they say we are a currency, but they're being looked at in a way different fashion.
Yeah, Liz, that is a great question, and I think it speaks to one of the most misguided questions yesterday, which was another question from Congressman Sherman, predicated on the idea that all cryptocurrencies are trying to replace money. The truth is, only a few cryptocurrencies are trying to do that. The others are doing totally different things. So you mentioned XRP. Yeah, XRP looks a little bit like a currency that represents a cross-border exchange of value, typically for remittances. For example, when immigrants are sending money home, XRP is a unit one could use. But most of these cryptocurrencies are built for other things. Like the Ether token, that's not meant to be a currency. The Ether token powers a network that people use to build decentralized financial applications. Totally different uses.
Brian, fascinating to hear from you, an adult, a grown-up who really understands both sides of this and is fully supportive of what's going on in the crypto world. Please come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
And make a corgi coin. I mean, if we have a mongoose coin, I want a corgi coin. Oh my gosh, somebody's going to make that right now that we said that. Okay, good to see you. Thanks very much.